back in 1976 by this group of people that are on your screen, trying to save two closes, one in Mansell Street and one in St Maurice Street. And the wee caption underneath it is local people building a future. And it's really weird to see that, over 40 years later, we haven't changed, what we do and what our thoughts are. So over the years, we started as Mansell and St Maurice, had a few name changes across the way, but we are now NG Homes. If you could go to the next slide, Leslie.
I'm just admiring the fashions, Lynn.
Oh, I know, it's lovely, isn't it? So a wee bit about NG Homes. Who are we? So for those of you who don't know, we're a community-based housing association based in the north of Glasgow. We cover Springburn and Postle Park, and we've got just under 5,500 houses. We've got 120 staff, and we have roughly a £24 million turnover. So we are quite a big organisation. Within Glasgow, we are second biggest to the Wheatley Group. One of the things that's quite dear to us is that it's not just about housing, it's about the community. So we promote the value of community engagement. We are very engaged with our community, doing lots of things, lots of regeneration work, and also to look at local prosperity and employment. So that's something that's key to what we do. We have a mixed tenure, lots of different house types, but we do have 14 multi-storey flats, which can be a challenge. We're currently investing around £6 million improving the multi-storey flats. We are putting in air source heat pumps and having new heating system in 6 of our multi-storey flats. And the wee picture that I've included there is just something that's happening very recently. That's the largest crane in Scotland within the last couple of weeks, putting air source heat pumps onto the roof of our multi-storey flats. Which was a really big thing for us in terms of getting that project kick-started, and that in itself has had a lot of tenant engagement with it. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about the area committee, which is the next slide.
Very smoothly done, Lynn.
So who are our area committee? So the area committee is award-winning. 2 years ago yesterday, that was us up on the stage getting our award. The man at the front there is our chair of our area committee. And the area committee is made up of 11 members. It's 5 board members and 6 tenants, and they meet around 8 times a year. And 4 times a year they discuss performance, and 4 times a year they either look at policy updates. So where does it sit, the area committee, within our governance structure? So you'll see there, I've put up what our governance structure is. So you get the NG Homes Board at the top. We've got 3 subsidiaries, NG2, NG Property, which is our factoring, and Design Services Glasgow. And underneath that sits our 4 subcommittees, which is Audit Subcommittee, Area Committee, Regeneration, and our Staffing Subcommittee. Area Committee is the one that deals with all of our, housing related issues, everything that on the ground, the real operational stuff.
Sorry, I'm just coming. Your assistant's letting you down here.
I know. So what kind of things do we report? When we look at the board, the board has so much on the agenda, as you can imagine: management accounts, audit reports, lots and lots of stuff, lots of really high level stuff. So what we have is the area committee, which looks at some of the kind of lower level operational stuff, but the stuff that's really important to our tenants and the things that we need, that our tenants and our board members need to be aware of. So as I said before, the area committee is kind of half tenants, half board members, but some of the board members are also tenants. So there's a real high number of tenants within that area committee. When we report to the board, we take what we would class as a short version of our KPIs, and that's really to let the board know where we are in relation to what we're doing in terms of our performance. That's just a 2-pager, and it tells the board headline figures. Here's where we are with our voids, here's where we are with our arrears, here's where we are with gas servicing, but no real depth to it, because at a board meeting there's so much going on that it's very difficult for us in particular to be able to kind of drill down into that level of detail. So what we do is we take a longer version, if you like, which is a 4-page document, to the area committee for KPIs. But the actual area committee agenda and the paperwork, which I've got here, is around 40 to 50 pages worth that we take every quarter. Lots and lots of information. So the KPIs, for example, will talk about voids and lets, it will talk about rent and arrears, it will talk about tenancy sustainment, antisocial behaviour, court actions and evictions, repairs, gas safety, and adaptations, customer satisfaction, which we've had a long conversation about earlier. And that's really, as I say, the headline figures as to where are we with these things. And it's based on a traffic light system. So we'll let our area committee know if it's, green. Probably something similar to what some of you have already got in the amber and obviously red. If anything is red, we've got a section at the bottom of that KPI that gives areas for improvement. And what we then do is, you can't expect to take something that's not working so well to your area committee and not want to give reasons as to why things aren't working so well. So we take what our plans are to try and turn that around. And that generally generates a bit of discussion with the area committee in terms of, what about this? How can we do this? And it's a good reason to actually get a chat going about some of the things that maybe aren't working so well. We also take a neighbourhood services report, which pretty much tells them everything that's happening in the neighbourhoods. It talks about lets and turnover, but not at the KPI level. As I said, the KPI is very just, statistics really. The turnover and the lets, we detail where the lets are, how many lets there were. We detail turnover, so where the house is given up, what are the reasons for the house is given up, and again, sometimes that can generate a bit of discussion depending on the area. The neighbourhood report shows arrears, but it shows arrears and it shows arrears trends, and it will show arrears per patch, and we'll be able to see whether it's gone up or down across the months. We let the area committee know in that report about staff training, because it's important for them to know what our staff are being involved in. We also detail complaints and compliments so that we know what we've learned, what we need to work on, and also just the key one is compliments, letting people know exactly what we're doing well, because compliments, believe it or not, don't come in as often as complaints. And it's really good to be able to highlight them, particularly staff and committee members. We also detail MSP inquiries, because we do get a lot of them, and I don't know whether that's just us where we are situated in the north of Glasgow, but we do get a lot of MSP inquiries. So we report that to the area committee as well and let them know what it was about, what each, it could be 5 about antisocial, 4 about allocations, that kind of thing, just to give them what the elected members are inquiring about within our area. Within that neighbourhood report, we also talk about the HIT squad, who are our environmental squad. They're out and about picking up bulk, that kind of thing, and being able to show them before and after pictures. We also use the HIT squad for our voids, so we're able to show them if a house needs cleared out. We're able to show some pictures of things like that, which again you wouldn't be able to discuss at board level. We talk about antisocial behaviour, and when we talk about antisocial behaviour, again we drill it down into what's causing the problems in our neighbourhoods. Is it parties? Is it drug dealing? What is it so that we can try and get underneath some of that. We talk about the focus groups, because that gives us information on where we would suggest that the focus group is a step into the area committee. So we want to know what the kind of level below the area committee, if you like, is dealing with and what things are concerning them. We also talk about in that report how we assist our tenants, and that could be food referrals. We gave 50 food parcels out this month. We help people with furniture, and here's the figures. And also we do paint packs, and how many gives a feel for what the demands are in our service. So that's the KPIs in the neighbourhood report, which is 2 of the main ones. But one of the ones that we also report on is money advice. And money advice, we use GMAP for our money advice service, and we report to the board, to the area committee rather, what that means for us. And what that meant in our summer report, was the year-end report, was that we had £3 million in additional income for our tenants. So again, that's really good for them to know, and also we can break down where that £3 million came from, and we detail what the demand is for the service, how many people are waiting, how quickly people can get an appointment, and we also detail some case studies in there as well, which is really good, because it then details to the area committee, here's a real life scenario, how did this service help this person? And very often, on every occasion actually, we put at the end of it what the total financial gain is, and the total financial gain is normally around, based on a 12-month period, and that ranges sometimes up to £15,000 for a tenant. So that's really great for the area committee to be able to see a real hands-on case as to how much the service is benefiting the tenants. One of the things we also take to the area committee is eviction reports, and I'm not sure how many people do that, but what we do is we get a 1 or a 2-page report, and we write it as a normal board report, and we detail in it who the people are. Not who the people are. Oh no, I'm still back.
Sorry. I think I was just going to ask the gentleman who was unmuted to mute again.
We don't detail who the people are in the sense of, you know, by able to GDPR or anything like that, telling them. But what we do is we put, are they male or female? What's their household composition? What's their debt? And we also tell the story of what's happened and how we've got to that, because we only take eviction reports to the area committee as a very last resort. But again, this is really good for the area committee to get a feel for what's happening out there, because tenants in general probably don't see the half of some of the stuff that we take to the area committee. So it's really good for them to get a real feel for everything that we do. And another one is a risk register. Every subcommittee, we take a risk register, and for the housing services one, we take the housing services operational risk register, and that features things like welfare reform, you know, fire safety, or fire risks of fire. Obviously, we've recently added COVID-19 to it, and that gives us again the opportunity for us to sit with the committee and have a discussion about what are the things internally and externally that can make a difference to our day-to-day business. And that's a report that has to be approved at every single area committee. So we'll discuss that with them and we'll say, you know, what do you think? How can external factors affect us? How can internal factors affect us? And how do we get that discussion going about making sure that that risk register is set at exactly the right level? And the risk register from each of the subcommittees then feeds into the strategic risk register for the organisation. So that's a really important part for the area committee. And the final one that I just want to touch on in terms of the reports that we take is the Universal Credit Report. That's a report that we have started taking when Universal Credit started to come about. And really it's about allowing the area committee to see how the cases have grown from nothing really to now. We've got 5,500 houses and we've got over 1,000 people now on Universal Credit, and the numbers are increasing obviously as we go through this particular period where lots more people are unemployed. So that's a really important report to be able to demonstrate to our area committee, you know, where is this going. So you'll see in the slide, you know, there's other ones that we've got there, factor and repairs. I could talk forever, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to bore you completely. But it's just really to give you a wee feel for some of the stuff that we take to the area committee. And that stuff there that I've talked about will go 4 times. So it is a lot of work gathering all that information, but I think it's an important part of the work. But we also do some other stuff with the area committee. If you want to move on, Leslie. So when we talk about this stuff, you know, we've got some of the reports that I've spoke about. We will find that there's things we're maybe not performing on and that we want to add a bit of detail. And the wee picture at the bottom in the right hand side there, that was a presentation that we did for the area committee last year, when after the ARC figures came out and we looked at days to let, refusals and repairs right first time, and they were 3 of the things that we weren't doing so well on. So again, being able to drill down on a specific, we spent an hour with the area committee giving them a presentation on drilling down into actual streets, what was problem streets, what was causing us issues, why we were getting refusals, and asking them for their advice on what we should do, and then came up with a plan to be able to take that forward. So we're able to adapt, you know, each second area committee, if you like, and what can that mean, and how can that assist the tenants and also the service. Sometimes we have guest speakers, you know, if there's maybe a change to a council service, if we're bringing in something new, we'll have the area committee briefed on that so that they're up to speed in what we're doing. We had a spate of fires within the last year or so, none related to us in terms of, you know, electrical or anything related to safety, but more tenants starting fires or accidental fires. So we took the area committee on a visit to Scottish Fire and Rescue Service headquarters in Cambuslang. And that's a picture there, a couple of them looking in at the house that gets set on fire in a pretend road traffic accident. So again, it's just to update. And what we did following that was we updated our risk register with fire, the risk of fire, because the risk of fire is obviously great on the association. So some of these things, you know, it ties in really nicely in terms of what we do. And as I said previously, we also do policy updates. We'll discuss the policies with them, and the area committee are the one who signs off, you know, gives the final sign off on any policy updates that we're doing, our policy reviews. So really, you know, lots and lots of information goes to the area committee, lots and lots of work, but really worthwhile. And the benefits to the area committee, or to us having the area committee, Leslie, if you look at the next slide, is that for us at NG Homes, we've got more informed tenants and board members because they know the business right down to the kind of level, you know, the root level. We've got more informed tenants, more involved tenants and board members. It's decision making at a real operational level. You know, particularly when I go back to the eviction reports, I've got a wee man on my committee who will add up the eviction reports. So it could be a £3,000 and a £7,000 one, and at the end of it, he'll go, that's £10,000 that means for our business. That's £10,000 we're never going to get back. So it's important, you know, for them to be actually making those decisions at an operational level, and also be able to question what we do and scrutinise what we do. And it is a form of scrutiny. And it's good for the tenant to have an understanding of sometimes why we have to evict people as a last resort. And then they actually have the final say so on that. And again, I've already spoke about the risk register and how important it is to make sure that they feed into that, to have a say in what eventually becomes, you know, the overall risk register for the organisation. So that's me. Hopefully I haven't over my 15 minutes, but that's a real whistle-stop tour of what we do at NG Homes and how we report our performance to our area committee. So thanks for listening. Hope you're all still there.
Thank you for that, Lynn. That was great. Thank you. So we're asking people to keep questions to the end. So you'll be pleased to hear there's one hand up and there is one question on chat. So we're going to keep them to the end, and I will stop sharing and go on to the next one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Lynn. I did this yesterday as well. So hopefully, Fife Council. There we are. I placed that one. So moving on, we have John and Claire from Fife Council. And I know that Claire is going to be starting off. It's a double act, this one. So Claire's going to be starting off and John will then take over. So if I can ask Claire. Okay, Claire.
Yeah,
hello, Claire.
Hiya. Hi,
Hiya.
I don't think that very many people know my face. I'm Claire Houghton. I'm the lead officer for business planning at Fife Council. So what I wanted to do today was just really give you a little bit of background to our pathway to improvement and our annual performance cycle. So in Fife, what we've done is we've implemented a 3-year pathway to improvement programme. And really the pathway was created just to increase our performance as a landlord, so identifying trends in our ARC data and looking at a 3-year trend for kind of progression and improvement. So our first pathway was implemented between 2015 and 2018, which saw some really good results, some good improvements, and we're now in our second pathway, which covers 2019 to 2022. So our pathway to improvement sits alongside our annual performance cycle, and it kind of happens on a yearly basis. So I just wanted to point out that the image that you're seeing on screen is our annual performance cycle as it would normally happen. Obviously this year COVID-19 has caused delays in kind of submitting data to the regulator and things like that. So, but I thought it would be easier to talk about normal circumstances than what we've had to do this year. So our performance cycle normally starts in April, and that's when we kick off with our customer satisfaction survey. We carry out 3 surveys across our mainstream, our temporary accommodation and also our gypsy traveller sites. And we use this as an opportunity to collect the data for the return on the charter, so things like your satisfaction with your overall service, satisfaction with repair service, etc. But we also use it as an opportunity to get feedback on other things. So we have some questions in there that will ask, you know, what the tenants' priorities for improving their homes are, what priorities they have for improving their neighbourhood, the repair service, and things like that. So I think it was Lydia that mentioned earlier, kind of the qualitative versus the quantitative information. We kind of put that together into one survey. Between May and September, that's really when we're kind of submitting our data to the regulator. We report to committee on our performance, how we have, if we have improved or not in terms of our pathway to improvement. We're looking at our annual assurance statement, completing that and submitting that. And we also look for some external scrutiny, and that's normally done by the Scottish Housing Network in September. So following the return on the charter being published by the regulator, that's usually at the end of August. That's when we start to look at the tenant performance report. If you just want to change slide, Leslie.
Yeah, no problem.
So our report to pulling together our, oh God, what's the word? We basically pulled together a tenant-led working group to kind of pull together the performance report for tenants, and we have 2 representatives from each of the 3 tenant federations that you can see on screen. So we have 6 reps in total, and really that's just to ensure that we've got fairness and an equal representation across our tenant group. If you want to change slide again, Leslie.
Yep, sure.
So the group, really to make it easier for tenants to follow the report, the group wanted to categorise all of the ARC indicators. So we grouped them together into 5 kind of main topics. So tenant satisfaction, rent and service charges, housing quality and maintenance, housing access and support, and neighbourhood and community. And we do provide some other information, but I'll come back to that later on if you just want to go to the next slide, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Again, the group were really conscious that they wanted to make the report really easy to follow, and I've just screenshotted one of the pages, the housing and quality and maintenance pages, just to demonstrate what the report actually looks like. So we colour code our performance. We do the kind of red, amber, green, which I think is probably quite common across landlords. So any indicator that we're kind of performing poorer than the local authority average and we've not improved our performance is shown in red. Amber is if we're poorer than local authority average, but we've improved our own performance, and then obviously green, we're kind of better than local authority average. In addition to the red, amber and green, there are some indicators, as you'll all be aware, that provide good context for organisations, but they're not necessarily comparable across landlords for various reasons. So you might have different stock sizes or different age of stock. And we indicate these throughout the report in blue. So I don't know if you can see the blue spanner on the screen. The group felt it was important to let tenants know the number of reactive repairs that we carry out, but that we couldn't really compare to other landlords. So we use that as a good way to indicate kind of the the contextual information that we have. And across the report, each of the 5 sections is colour coded in the same way, so that tenants can kind of look at a snapshot and say, you're doing really good at repairs, you're doing rubbish at access, because that's all red. If you just want to change slide, please, Leslie. The group also wanted to put in sort of 3-year trend analysis on our customer satisfaction, just really to show tenants how we're performing across the 3-year period, and to help them determine at a glance if we're improving over the 3 years or not. And again, we use the same red, amber, green analysis, so you can see that the overall tenant satisfaction and the neighbourhood and community are bad, but the quality and maintenance and access and support we're doing quite well. We also provide some information on our pathway to improvement. So we'll give an update to tenants on where we're at with the pathway, if we're improving, if we aren't, and we'll also detail some kind of next steps and things that we're doing as a service. So again, I think it was Lydia that mentioned earlier, it's the kind of you said we did. So we'll provide some information on where we're kind of going with things. And if you want to change slide again, Leslie. Thank you. We also provide some information on tenant participation within Fife, and give some contact details for local groups and federations if any of the tenants want to get involved in any of the activities. And the final pages in the report are really dedicated to our charter project group. As an organisation, we really wanted to recognise how much time and effort is involved in creating the report, acknowledging that the group are volunteers. So every member of the group writes a short kind of biography, giving a little bit of background to themselves and their involvement with the tenant movement, and we include their photos and their titles and roles. If you want to change again, Leslie. So personally, I think that it's really important, not only as a way of thanking them, but really to recognise that they're giving up so much of their time to help us put this together for tenants. And it also shows other tenants that this isn't a report that we've produced. We've been there as facilitators, but this report has been produced by their peers, you know, other tenants. And so we use this report as a way to kind of communicate in an easy to understand format what our performance results are. So we can provide printed copies of the report, and we have that available through our local offices, and we also provide printed copies to the federation so that they can distribute them to tenants as well. We also have the digital copy online so people could download that kind of at their leisure. And we promote the performance through our Tenant magazine, Down Your Street, and our social media channels as well. If you just want to move on, Leslie. So just to bring us back to our annual performance cycle, the thing that really underpins it that I didn't mention at the start is the bit right in the middle of the blue diagram, the tenant scrutiny, and that is ongoing throughout the year. So I'll hand over to John and he'll tell you a little bit of our approach to tenant scrutiny.
Thanks, Claire.
Thanks.
Thanks, Claire. Let me introduce myself. My name is John Houston, TPO at Fife Council. As you can see on the screen, we've got, I thought, one of the best descriptions of tenant scrutiny. Tenant scrutiny can provide a mechanism to identify, assess, measure service performance in terms of delivery, timeliness, staff approach, and attitude. An effective scrutiny process is also reliant on the provision of accessible, relevant, and comprehensive information. And I just thought that was a really succinct way that the CIH captured it. Next slide, Leslie. This is our wonderful Fife tenant-led scrutiny panel. They're a wonderful bunch. This is a picture of them. I think this was a picture we took, and it was the first report. So they were delighted once they had finally completed it. And the group members created a logo just to kind of, stand out with their documents and all their paperwork. I have to say today, they are successfully identifying, assessing and measuring service performance in terms of delivery, timeliness, staff approach and attitude. They're doing a fantastic job. I have to say too that I'd like to recognise the work of Alex Mundy, the former chair of the Fife Federation of Tenants and Resident Associations, FORTRA. Alex was instrumental in establishing our tenant scrutiny group in Fife, and we're so grateful for all the efforts that he made in making it such a successful group. He was a tireless tenant and community champion for decades in Fife, and we sadly lost Alex in March last year. The Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel in Fife is supported by Fife Council's TP team, and they work very closely with the Fife Tenants Forum and the 3 federations. As I am the link officer for the group, it's my job to secure the provision of accessible, relevant and comprehensive information, and importantly invite key council staff to meet with them to assist them with their scrutiny activities. And that's a huge challenge. The group also has an independent advisor, Lorraine McLaren. She's employed to support the group in all aspects of their work. The group is fiercely independent. The panel members are smart, fair, tough, determined and organised, and they have a great sense of humour. They've been very successful. They've managed to complete 2 scrutiny reports. The first one was length of time in temporary accommodation. That began in September 2018 and was completed in January 2019. The first scrutiny report detailed 8 recommendations, which were fully adopted by the Council. The second report, Satisfaction with Repairs, began in February 2019, and they completed that in August 2019. That report had 15 recommendations. Now, alas, COVID has caused so much disruption, it remains unclear just what progress has been made with most of the panel's recommendations. And Anne Rocks, who is the Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel Chair, is pursuing the service so that we can get an update. Oh, next slide, sorry. So COVID has caused a lot of disruption, and sadly the group stopped its work in March 2020. They did have a topic that they were going to move forward with, but due to COVID, everything's on hold. So the TPOs, the team are working with Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel Chair Anne Rocks to establish the right technological arrangements for the group in 2021. FORTRA have very kindly provided the group with 10 tablets so that they can carry out the scrutiny activities from the safety of their own homes, and the group can work remotely, which is a big challenge. There are some members who are very good with technology, and there's others that find it a wee bit of a challenge. So the chair, Anne Rocks, and myself are working on new arrangements, and we hope to have that all set up at the beginning of April 2021. Next slide, please, Leslie. We are very, very fortunate in Fife to have a very successful Tenants magazine. So we're informing and promoting the successful scrutiny work to our tenants and residents within Down Your Street. We'll do regular recruitment drives, and we'll put that in the magazine, and it will also go on social media. Importantly, I invite senior managers to write articles detailing what recommendations Fife Council has adopted and provide an explanation for those they did not adopt out of the scrutiny reports. Incidentally, I'm the editor of Down Your Street magazine, so I'm always chasing the senior management to get these types of articles. We undertake yearly review articles after the reports to determine what scrutiny group recommendations have been a success and how this has impacted service delivery. Tenant scrutiny is a relatively new activity for our service. There remains very little awareness of tenant scrutiny activities, and this is something that we're determined to change. The question is, why is this such a challenge? With so many emails, videos, social media posts, and TV news jostling for our limited attention, it's important that we find an authentic way to cut through and communicate with our tenants. My view is I'm very passionate about the scrutiny work and what this group is doing. They're doing amazing work, but it's not being seen and it's not being heard. Next slide, please, Leslie. So I know we're nearly at lunch and I'm tantalising you with these tasty sausages. We are trying to find a way to inform and promote the tenant scrutiny work, the successful work that the group's doing. And I think that's the crucial part. So we're looking to develop a campaign that promotes the Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel's activities on our website and social media platforms using videos, animations to tell a story that sizzles and captures people's attention and hopefully cuts through all the noise and all the other distractions. Tenants and tenant groups will be at the heart of this work. Next slide, please, Leslie. Our partnership approach includes the Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel, tenants, tenant groups, the Fife Tenant Forum, our 3 federations, and Fife Council staff. And there's a 3-stage approach to this. We're going to learn, we're going to work with Fife Council's communication team to create effective articles and campaigns to promote tenant scrutiny, learn best practice from other organisations and colleagues across the country, share our success widely as possible, and 2, make innovative promotional information on tenant scrutiny that has an impact, truly informs and empowers our tenants. And continually we'll listen to our tenants so that we get the right feedback and we know that we're getting this right. And then the 3rd is repeat, never stop learning, adapt the message to secure the ongoing engagement and interest of our tenants. The final slide, Leslie. The pathway to improvement. I'm working very closely with the chair, Fife Tenant-led Scrutiny Panel Chair, Anne Rocks, and we're looking to set up a dedicated website for the group. We're creating a Facebook group for them. And by April 2021, we're hoping that all the members will be able to successfully be working on their tablets in the safety of their own home and working, securely. And at the moment, we're planning to have the tablets work on the free Microsoft Teams app and utilising Outlook. That may or may not work, and we may also have to provide internet dongles for some of the members, but we're still teasing out how we're going to do all of this. It's ambitious, but we're aiming for the beginning of April. And the key thing is the great work that they've done in terms of 2 reports. We're looking to have an advertising campaign that truly demonstrates and shows really effectively the good work that the group's doing.
Thank you so much for that, John. Elaine, you seem to be sharing your screen. Could you not share? So I will try and get rid of this. Okay, so next one. Thank you so much for that, John and Claire. And we're over now, last but not least, from Fine Homes, we have Craig Baxter. And here we go, Craig. Go. Okay. If you don't know where Fine Homes are and you don't need to put your hand up, Fine Homes is based in Rothesay. So Craig, it's over to you.
Thanks, Leslie. Yeah, as Leslie was saying, Fine Homes is based in Argyll and Bute. I'm in Rothesay. We've got over 1,800 various properties, mixed tenure, throughout Argyll and Bute, which covers Bute itself, Dunoon in the Kill area, as far up to Loch Gilphead in Mid Argyll and down to Campbelltown in Kintyre. So it's quite a big geographic area that we cover. We have our head office is based in Bute, and we have 3 other offices, one in Dunoon, one in Loch Gilphead and one in Campbelltown, that are staffed with housing staff and technical services staff there just to support the tenants in those areas. Can I have the next slide, please,
Yeah,
Leslie?
here you go.
Our aim is to, as it says there, is to look at work with tenants to look at how to maintain or improve our performance. So how do we achieve this? Next slide, please. We look at the 3 Ps. Yes, it's about improving the performance, but we look at the procedure and the policy as well.
Someone is, who's sharing this, please? Somebody stop sharing. Please. I don't know who it is. Oh my goodness. Right, let me try again, Craig. Sorry.
So we look at the 3 Ps, which is performance, procedure and the policy. And as you've seen from the slide there, we've got them all feeding into each other. Yes, we'll look at the performance and how we can improve that, but does that mean that we've got to change our policy or a procedure to support that improvement in performance? So if that's something that we've got to do, that's what we will do. What we'll look at for the performance is we'll analyse data that we get back from our tenant surveys, and we'll look at that and we try to break it down into local areas. It might be that estate management issues are more prevalent in Kill, and it might be that voids or hard to lets are more of an issue in Bute. So we try to drill that data down and present that to groups throughout the areas, just so that we can sort of drill down to the local issues and look at our performance in that respect, although they do cover all areas. So that's something that we try to look at. Can I have the next slide, please, Leslie? One of the most important things with any scrutiny group is ensuring that we have members that are willing to partake. So we've always got an ongoing recruitment, which is via our newsletter. We've got a quarterly newsletter that goes out, and that basically that will give an update of where different scrutinies are, what we've been looking at, also different consultations as well, what we look at, and feeding back as to what the results of those scrutinies and consultations, etc. were. That's the Get Involved form there. That lets you show an interest in whether you want to be on the consultation register, a member of the management committee, a member of a focus group or a local area group, and also the service improvement group, which is our scrutiny group. We've got a big online presence that we use via Twitter, Facebook, and on our webpage. These forms are also available in office, and the forms were available at events when we were allowed, obviously, to have events, which is the one I think we're all missing, is that face-to-face contact. can I have the next slide, please, Leslie? As I was saying earlier, we look at local groups. Analysis is by area. So from the surveys, we'll drill down to that. We then invite the local scrutiny members along to look at that, but also we'll invite any separate local tenant groups that aren't specifically within the scrutiny group, because they'll obviously have an input from some of their members. So it's good just to get a wee bit of broader outlook to what it is that we're trying to look at and improve in the performance. Next slide, please, Leslie. With the meetings, what we try to do is we'll host it, but we won't control it as such. We are there just to facilitate the members of the scrutiny groups, and it's for them to sort of go in the direction that they want to go in. We found that we don't interrupt with legislation blocks, because that kind of stifles discussion and any sort of creative thinking that the group might have. We found very early on that when we were doing groups, somebody would come out with an idea, and we would say, oh, you can't do that because policy procedure, you can't do that because legislation. And that just, you then start people backing off and start to think, well, what's the point being here if we can't put our points forward? So rather than interrupting with things like that, we'll let them discuss the issues fully. And obviously, taking the notes, we can then feed back later on and to say why that can't go forward. Because we had a recent group in Butte looking at void and hard-to-let properties and a performance surrounding that. And there was various suggestions were coming through. And rather than stifle that conversation, things go on and roll on. And a couple of good ideas actually came out of that. One of which is a death of a tenant. We've now got a 2-week period whereby no rent will be charged where a tenant passes away, because we are understanding that there's enough pressure on the family with everything that they're going through. It used to be that they'd come in, they would inform us of the death, and then we would sort of give them the process and away they went. They're not interested when to hand keys in, how long it takes to clear a property, various different things like that. They've got other more important issues on their mind at that time. So what we've done is there's now a 2-week grace period, so which gives them time, obviously, to deal with the more important things in hand, but also then time to clear out the property if that's the way that it's going to go, and give the property back to us in a condition that per the terms and conditions. So that seems to have helped. And also with that, we've got a pack that we give to the next of kin, and it's basically a checklist of what it is that they have to do, because I don't know about anybody else. Thankfully, I've not had to deal with the direct consequences of a death of a relative, but I couldn't tell you where to start as to what I have to do. Whereas now we've got this pack, so people know that they have to cancel the council tax, contact utilities, inform the registrar, various different things like that. It's just a wee reminder to help them through that period in time. The tenants did want us to list local funeral directors and things like that, but we didn't want to sort of, in case a new business came up or people were with maybe the co-op or Golden Charter, different things like that, to be seen to be sort of supporting some and excluding others. So that's where we went with that. But another one that came out of that was also with the hard to lets was the amalgamation of smaller properties. You're sitting with maybe a bed sit in a 1-bedroom property that are together in a block, can't let them, nobody's interested in them, so why don't we convert them into a 2-bedroom property, which is people are looking for. So that's something that we took on board. We've actually taken that forward, and it was obviously for finance and technical service to look at regards to HAG and what was possible. But we've actually amalgamated 2 properties into a 3-bedroom property now, family flat, which were 2 smaller because of the size of them, hard to let properties, and now there's a family living in there. So that's, again, is helping with, instead of having properties lying empty and rental loss, we've now got a bigger property with rent coming in that might not equate to what the 2 properties were, but it's better than 2 properties sitting there wasting away. The most important thing is to close the loop with feedback. So after we've had our initial meeting, we'll go back and we'll discuss within our different departments what's come out of the scrutiny meetings, what we can do, what's a change to policy, what's a change to procedure, if it can be done, and if it can't be done. We'll then feed that back to the group at another meeting and get their feedback. And everything that we get, we will publish on our website. So we'll explain what the group were looking at, we'll explain what their ideas were and what they could do and what they couldn't do, and then what the next steps are that we've taken, for example, with the death of a tenant. And that then gets informed to the wider tenant community. Next step, slide, please. Yep, just basically any questions there, if anybody has got anything.
Thanks for that. I think we've had a high quality morning and a higher quality, I'm calling it the afternoon, but late afternoon. It's been an amazing day, full of learning. Questions from the floor have helped us learn as well. I think each of the presentations has been quite different in its own way. But I know that I have one question so far for Lynn, which was, how many people are on your area committee, Lynn? Hi, Lynn. Oh, no. Are you there, Lynn?
I got to unmute myself there. Sorry about that. Try to get used to these things, isn't it? So I think the question was how many tenants are on it.
Okay.
And I had said that there was 6 tenants and 5 board members, but there's 2 of the board members, so there's 8 in total.
Okay,
tenants
thank you.
on the area committee.
Okay, so that's one question for Lynn. Do we have any other questions? Coming towards the end of the session, so any questions or comments would really welcome.
There was another question, or 2 more questions. I don't know if you want me to answer the other 2 questions.
Right, on you go, Lynn. Yeah, that would be grand, and then I'll come on to Margaret.
One of them was about disability and how we make sure disabled people are represented through the area committee. And that's quite difficult because we don't actually have any disabled people on the area committee. And that's not for want of trying. I think the area committee, the makeup of the area committee tends to be older people. And we are trying really hard to try and see if we can, through the focus groups, because as I said, the focus groups are our kind of starting point. And once we get people engaged in focus groups, we then move them on, because the area committee is part of the board structure. So we need to be, co-opted onto it and things like that. So it's not just as easy, I don't suppose, as trying to kind of get people onto it. So we try and get people onto the focus groups. So one of the things that we're actually trying actively just now, which isn't very easy at this moment in time, is to look at people with different ethnic origin and people with disabilities to feed into our focus groups to try and get them onto our.
Okay, thanks, Lynn.
The other question was about the area committee. Was there only one? Because I suppose, as the name suggests, it's area. And back in 2011, when we started the area committee, there was 2, and it was 1 per area. So we had 1 in Postle Park and 1 in Springburn. But what we decided to do was we were feeding actually a lot of information that was the same to both sets. So we merged them. And we now only have 1. So we are actually having discussions about calling it the Housing Services Committee, because probably the name area might be a bit misleading. So that's the other question. I think there was one final question that also had asked about scrutiny and was saying, was the area committee a scrutiny group because it's board members and tenants? And obviously, as we know, scrutiny groups should be tenants only. No, the area committee isn't our scrutiny group. We actually have a separate scrutiny group that over the years have looked at estate management, estate walkabouts, repairs and voids. The area committee is just another level of scrutiny, if you like, but it's not our scrutiny group. And one of the things that we're looking to do is try and enhance, I suppose, the scrutiny group, and we're actually commissioned the services of TPAS to assist us with that, and see if we can get our scrutiny group a wee bit more involved in some of the other things that we're doing in the organisation. So thank you for pointing that out, but they're not our scrutiny group. They are part of our board structure, and the scrutiny group sits outside that.
Okay.
Hopefully that answered all the questions.
Thank you. Thank you. And whoever said good choice, Lynn, I think it might have been Jane to choose. So Margaret Anderson, Margaret, I think your camera's turned off, but you've got your hand up.
There you go.
There you are.
Just a wee question for Craig. I was very interested in when you said about having a pack for relatives in the case of bereavement. Obviously, they're not the tenants. They might not know what was supposed to be there. Is that only for bereavement? Because I can see maybe that would be useful in maybe somebody getting into a nursing home and the relatives having to give up the house. Same kind of procedure as in bereavement. So I think that's a fantastic idea, and I would like to think we could maybe run with that. I'll be taking that forward in our TP group. But do you use that in the care home situation as well, or not?
It's to be honest, Margaret, it's not something we've come across. However, it's an excellent idea, and it's something that I'll take forward and put to the team. I don't see it being an issue. There won't be anything specifically different in it, obviously, apart from contacting maybe an undertaker, that kind of thing. But it can be tweaked, and it absolutely can be used for that situation.
I'm envisaging maybe a scenario where somebody's maybe working away from home, living away from where they were brought up, and having to come back and tie up mum or dad's estate because they're going into care.
Yes.
For health, and they just don't know what the procedures are, or even what there is in the locality. So it would be a good idea to kind of maybe get that forward into a package for them.
No, that's a fantastic idea, and it's something that I'll make a note of and take forward. Thanks for that, Margaret.
Okay.
Thanks, Margaret, and thanks, Craigie. I thought that was a great idea as well. Claire Darby, you've got your hand up, Claire.
Yes, thanks, Leslie. Really just, I'm from Northern Ireland, as most of you and I will have realised by my accent, but I work for Clanwell Housing in Northern Ireland, and new to that particular company. So at the minute we are only developing our scrutiny, so I find this morning really useful. And if you don't mind, I've taken some of your names. I think I'm going to be getting in touch with some of you. And obviously, you know, gleaning all the good work that you do in Scotland. So thank you. Thanks for today.
Thanks for that compliment, Claire. I'm sure people will. I'll say you're safe enough. You're all right. Lisa, you had your hand up. Lisa Lafferty.
Hi, Leslie. Yep, just a couple of comments on the chat again. So
okay, thank you.
Porter had said to John, I'm in West Lothian, and we used to have the Down Your Street magazine. It was great and very informative locally, but we no longer have it, and it is missed. So is that an area that doesn't get covered with Down Your Street anymore? And the other question, I think there was one for Craig, just saying that thinking that the bereaved relatives pack is a fantastic idea, and would you be willing to share this?
Just in response to, you know, the Down Your Street magazine, I send it out free of charge 4 times a year to all 30,000 Fife council tenants. If someone managed to get it in West Lothian, I have no idea how that's happened. But it's for Fife Council, it's the Fife Council area and boundary. So, but it is available on our TP homepage. So if you go to Fife Council's TP homepage, there's an electronic version there. So, you know, it's open to everybody.
Okay, thanks, John. Craig, did you want to come in? Can you share your bereavement pack?
Absolutely, I'm quite happy to do that. If what I'll do is I'll get that together, and if I pass it on to yourself, Leslie, and you can put it out to whoever.
Yeah. If you send it to Elaine, because she's got the contacts for everybody in the room today.
No problem.
So, without further ado, I can only give an absolutely enormous thank you to all the speakers today. It was absolutely wonderful, a great selection, and all very different. A huge thank you to everyone who took part and came along and answered the questions. We're getting some absolutely amazing feedback. And just, again, thank you so much. A round of applause to everybody for taking part today, either as contributors or as participants. And as you know, tomorrow is the end of Scrutiny Week. It's a 3-day week. Some of us are old enough to remember the days of a 3-day week. No, my mum told me about it. So thanks again, everybody, for coming along and contributing. It's been a great day, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks, people. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
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 See you tomorrow.
Thank you. Bye
Bye,
bye.
Leslie. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye. Oh, Lynn, you're in the lobby. Apparently you're not. Eileen, did you have a question? Eileen Porter, you've got your hands down now.
Okay, I can't hear.
You might.
Hi, Eileen.
Just I can't get to go.
I can hear you, but I can't see you. No, I can't hear you now either. I can't hear you, Eileen.
No.
I can see you.
I can't.